students, we were doing vectors. Today we are going to start question related to vectors. Addition law of vectors के according question start करेंगे. Let us start with the question number 1. Write down the statement. If A vector, B vector, C vector, if A vector, B vector, C vector be the vectors represented by A vector, B vector, C vector be the vectors represented by sides of triangle taken in order, represented by side of triangle represents in order, taken in order, then prove that A vector plus B vector plus C vector is equal to 0 vector. A vector, B vector, C vector with the sides of triangle taken in order, then we have to prove that sum of A, B and C vector is equals to 0 vector. Now A vector plus B vector plus C vector. A vector is BC vector, B vector is CA vector plus C vector is AB vector. Now BC plus CA. Direction of these two vectors are in this direction, but CA is in this direction, so this is the resultant vector. According to triangle law of vector addition, BC plus CA is equals to BA vector. We know that AB vector is negative of BA vector. Because AB vector is in this direction, then BA is this. So AB vector is equals to negative of BA vector. So instead of AB vector, we can write as negative of BA vector. So this is equals to 0 vector. Hence A vector plus B vector plus C vector is equals to 0 vector. Now the next one is if P1, P2, P3, P4, if P1, P2, P3, P4 are points in a plane or space and O is the origin of vectors, show that P4 coincides with O, show that P4 coincides with O if and only if O P1 vector plus P1 P2 vector plus P2 P3 vector plus P3 P4 vector is equals to 0 vector. We know that vector addition is associative, so we can write this as O P1 vector plus P1 P2 vector plus P2 P3 vector plus P3 P4 vector is equals to 0 vector, because vector addition is associative. Now by triangle law of vector addition, OP1 plus OP2, that is equals to OP2 plus P2 P3 vector plus P3 P4 vector is equals to 0 vector. Again by vector law, associative vectors are associative under addition. So by triangle law of vector addition, this is equals to OP3 vector. Similarly, here this is equals to OP4 vector is equals to 0 vector. Now since OP vector, P4 vector is equals to 0 vector, it means P4 coincides with O. if PO vector plus OQ vector is equals to QO vector plus OR vector, show that points PQR are collinear. The points are said to be collinear if they are in the same line. If PQR is in the same line, then we can say that PQR are the collinear points. Now we have to show that PQR are collinear. By triangle law of vector addition, PO plus OQ is equals to PQ vector and QO plus OR is equals to QR vector. Vector PQ is equals to QR vector. It means that PQ vector and QR vector are either parallel. PQ vector and QR vector are either parallel or collinear. Now since Q is the common point between PQ and QR, since Q is common point between PQ vector and QR vector, this is the common point, therefore PQR are collinear points. PQR are collinear. This is what we want to prove. Hence points PQR are collinear points. Note up to here. Now the next one. Question number 4. If A vector and B vector are any two vectors, then give the geometrical interpretation of the relation modulus of A vector plus B vector is equals to modulus of A vector minus B vector. Let OA vector is equals to A vector, AB vector is equals to B vector. Complete the parallelogram. Complete parallelogram OA BC. Then OB vector is equals to A vector plus B vector by triangle law of vector addition. Since this is a parallelogram, therefore opposite sides are equal. OC vector is equals to B vector and BC vector and CB vector is equals to A vector. Because OABC is parallelogram, therefore AB is equals to OC and OA is equals to CB vector, that is A vector. Now by triangle law of vector addition in triangle OAB, OA vector plus AB vector is equals to OB vector. Therefore, OB vector is equals to A vector plus B vector. Now, if we take the triangle OC vector parallelogram are equal. Therefore, OABC is rectangle and OA is perpendicular to OC. That is, A vector is perpendicular to B vector. Thus, if this equals to this, then A vector is perpendicular to B vector. That is, if the diagonals of a parallelogram are equal, then it is a rectangle. Now the next one. If A vector and B vector are the vectors determined by two adjacent sides of a regular hexagon, A vector and B vector be the vectors determined by two adjacent sides of a regular hexagon. What are the vectors determined by other sides taken in order? Let A, B, C, D, E, F be a regular hexagon. With AB vector is equals to A vector and BC vector is equals to B vector. We know that AD is parallel to BC and AD is equals to 2 times AD vector is equals to 2 times BC vector. Therefore, AD vector is 2B vector. Now, in triangle ABC, by triangle law of vector addition, AB vector plus BC vector is equals to AC vector. So, AC vector is equals to A vector plus B vector. Now, in triangle ACD, AC vector plus CD vector is equals to AD vector. AC vector is A vector plus B vector. Now, CD vector is equals to 2B vector minus A minus B vector. So, B vector minus A vector, CD vector is equals to B vector minus A vector. Now we know that diagonals of a hexagon, center of hexagon, diagonal of hexagon bisects by its center. Center of hexagon bisects its diagonals. Therefore, DE vector is equals to minus AB vector. EF vector is equals to minus BC vector. That is minus B vector, and FA vector is equal points of the regular hexagon. Next one, if sum of two unit vectors, if sum of two units vector is a unit vector, prove that magnitude of their difference is square root of 3. Let A cap and B cap be two unit vectors. Then we want to prove that, to prove magnitude of their difference is square root of 3. Since A and B vector is unit vector and it is given that sum of two units vector is also a unit vector, sum of two unit vector is also a unit vector. Let OA, A vector and B vector be two unit vectors. A vector, unit vectors of triangle OAB. OA is unit vector A and OB is unit vector B. Now we know that this is the resultant vector. By triangle law of vector addition, OA plus OB is equals to AB is equals to OB vector. A cap plus B cap. OB vector is A cap plus B cap, but it is also a unit vector. Therefore, OA is equals to OB is equals to AB is equals to 1. All the three sides of the triangle are equal. Therefore, this is an equilateral triangle. Therefore, OAB is an equilateral triangle. Equilateral triangle has each angle is equals to 60 degree. Since A cap and B cap are unit vectors, therefore A cap and negative of B cap are also unit vectors. Magnitude of A cap is 1 and magnitude of B cap is also 1. So this is the negative of B vector minus B cap. So this vector is A cap minus B cap. Let this be point B dash. I am again repeating. We have given that A vector and B vector are two unit vectors and sum of their magnitude is also a unit vector. Now all the three sides of triangle are equal. Therefore it is an equilateral triangle and angle of equilateral triangle is 60 degree. Since A and B are unit vectors, therefore the magnitude of negative vector is also a unit vector. So this vector is A cap minus B cap. Now we want to prove that magnitude of this vector is equals to square root of 3 units. Now OA vector is equals to OB vector. OA vector. We know that now A cap is equals to negative of B vector. Therefore, OA vector is equals to AB dash vector.